Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on this very special audio recording. I have a very, very special guest with me today who I think everyone who is in the dental industry, no matter what kind of practice you have, no matter where you're located, is going to want to hear this gentleman's story, because I think first and foremost it's going to save you a lot of headache, a lot of time, and most importantly, a lot of money. And I wanted to get him on today because mainly I think you can learn a lot from his life lesson that he's still currently going through, but will sort of be able to protect you from having sort of the same issue that he went through. And because of the sensitive nature of this topic and given the publicity of it, we're going to keep his identity shielded, and he's going to go by Dr. X. But Dr. X is a Texas dentist who recently found himself in a precarious situation where he had an issue with a federal law being broken that I think everyone can sort of adhere to and learn from. So, Dr. X, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you taking your time and sharing your story.
Sure, thanks.
So tell me a little bit about, for everyone who's listening to this, tell me, really just start from the beginning and tell me a little bit about what transpired and sort of, what was sent to you and why you sort of want to let the dental industry at large know kind of the deal that you went through.
Okay, I would just in a letter I received, it was like a package, and it had a letter in there saying that your website is not ADA compatible, and that it has harmed a client of his because he wasn't able to read it with his screen reader or various other things that the disabled people would use. And it's not a patient of mine; it's just some person. And then they proceeded to tell me I need to pay them $2,000 or they're going to slap me with this federal lawsuit. And then so I read through it, and there's a lawsuit attached, and there's this demand letter for $2,000, and then it has the person's name and the lawyer's name and all this stuff. So of course anyone would get that, just not know what to do. So I called my local Dallas County Dental Society and told them about it, and they had heard about it because I got a letter from them, and other people may have gotten it too, saying that this could happen or something like that at the ADA. And of course, I went and looked at my website and it had no videos on it, so I don't think I needed any closed captioning because there weren't any videos, so I just ignored it, and then this showed up a couple weeks later. So anyway, they referred me to legal counsel, and we have sent them a settlement offer on the $2,000, and in the meantime I've completely redone the website to the cost of well over $2,000, and then of course pay for a lawyer, which costs you $1,000. So it might be worth everyone's while to consider making your website ADA compatible, which you should anyway, so disabled people can read it. And I wish there was a better
just
way
so everyone
found
knows
out about that.
Yeah, just so everyone knows who's listening to this, just so we're clear, when we say ADA, we are not referencing the American Dental Association. We are referencing the American with Disabilities Act, which was a law that was passed in 1990 to afford people with disabilities the right to have access to businesses. So it was written pre-internet, right? So just recently there's been some federal cases, and the Department of Justice has ruled that they will be enforcing American with Disabilities Act compliancy towards the internet and towards your website. So what that means is that just like you need to have the wheelchair access ramp and you need to have wide doors and handicap bathrooms and so on and so forth, your website must be compliant with the Disabilities Act. And that's what we're referencing in this conversation. So if you don't mind me asking, who was your website provider prior to redoing your site?
I think it was some young person who is familiar with how to write websites, and it wasn't a big company like Intuit or Henry Schein or anything like that, which,
Sure.
by the way, I checked their websites they provided. They're not compliant either. And when I called Henry Schein, they didn't even know what I was talking about. So this is something you really need to have somebody who knows what they're doing correct for you.
Exactly. And I think that's the moral of the story here. So if you're using, like you said, you used a young kid or as a college kid, maybe you're using pro sites or office site or a custom job. It doesn't matter what website you have right now. Whatever site you have, it's not going to be ADA compliant, right? That's the point, is no one really knows about this. So now everyone's vulnerable to federal infractions, right? So I think, Doctor, when we're talking about this, I think, you're looking at spending thousands and thousands of dollars for something that could be fixed pretty quickly and pretty affordably without having to go and fight it in federal court. So tell me a little bit about what the association's saying about this. What's your feeling with that? Do you get the sense that the dental associations are scrambling? What's your take on all of that?
Yeah, they're concerned about it as well. And if you don't do it specifically looking for the rules that the ADA sent out in Title III, then, your website is hit or miss with total luck if it passes. I mean, it just won't. It can't. And so it's the right thing to do. And your website should be ADA compatible. But there's better ways to go about doing it, like volunteering it on your own. It'd be much better than the way it was given to me.
We've also done the same thing here at Local Search for Dentists. We now have, a compatibility program which gives everyone an ADA compliant site. And I've worked, pretty hard at getting it to where I hired a Silicon Valley attorney to vet it. We've made it completely compliant because, like you said, if it doesn't meet the coding guidelines set forth for accessibility, you can end up in the same situation no matter how pretty your website looks, because there's been some rumors floating around that if you just add an accessibility link to your website, that's somehow going to stop this from happening, because unfortunately, if your site's not accessible, the handicapped person can't access the link anyways. So it's sort of one of those things where I think to your moral of the story is, instead of losing out on thousands and thousands of dollars, or potentially tens of thousands of dollars, because like if you wouldn't have fixed your site, you would have had a federal lawsuit on your hands, which can be anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 in attorney's fees. Not to mention the public embarrassment that comes with being sued in federal court in your own community, right? And then the stress of that and the time, and it's scary. It's scary. So I think the moral of your story is, if you're listening to this, take it seriously and get yourself an ADA compliant website. Would you not agree?
I agree 100%. And it's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. And I don't know if you've thought about it this way, but I certainly have, which is 1 in 5 people have a disability. Now, we think of people with disabilities of being blind or deaf, right, or in a wheelchair. Well, disabilities range, the gamut, right? Someone could have been in Iraq and maybe their hands don't work as well as they once did, and they have, severe carpal tunnel, and they can't navigate, your website, all they have to do is file a complaint with the ADA, and then that goes on to the Department of Justice, and then they hire an attorney, and before you know it, you just denied a veteran access to your site. So there are people in your community right now who want to become really loyal patients who aren't getting the service from other dental practices because their sites aren't compatible. So now you've really done yourself not only a service from a headache standpoint, but you're gaining patients because you're servicing a community of people that have been neglected for a very long time. So I would argue that you could take these lemons and turn them into lemonade. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
And I would bet to say that the people with disabilities that can now access your site because you had it fixed and redesigned will now become extremely loyal patients who refer to you, refer their friends and family, because, if I can say one thing about the people who with disabilities is that they become very loyal customers, because when you start taking care of them, especially with something like we're in 2017, website has to be accessible to those people on their special devices, like you said. So if you're going to just, if you're going to get your site compliant, they're going to be extremely loyal people, right? And they're going to pay, stay, and refer for an extremely long period of time. So, and I guess, at this point, would you say right now you're sort of, you sent them a settlement offer and you're still dealing with this months and months later, right?
Correct. Yes, they haven't answered the letter, and we immediately fixed our site. So yeah, sure, there was problems that they outlined in the lawsuit that existed. However, they don't exist anymore. So I don't even know if they have a case anymore. I don't know, but
sure.
We addressed it. We fixed the problem, and we addressed their complaint. We're just waiting to hear back. So it's been a couple of months since we responded to them after he's back. So we put enough.
And I think the lesson in that is that here you are months and months and months dealing with this still, and it's still costing you money because every single time your attorney has to even move or pick up the phone or send an email, you're picking up the bill on that. So, it's still costing you money trying to make this go away, even though you have a compliant site because it wasn't compliant to begin with.
Right. It's about $450 a phone call.
Yeah, $450 a phone call. Which, by the way, when you're in a hot mess in a federal lawsuit, $400 you're willing to part with if the thing goes away, right? But those things add up quickly every single time. You don't care about the money at the moment. It's then when you look back and you're like, wow, I spent $10,000 to make this thing go away, not to mention I had to redesign my site anyways, right? Because that's the thing is, like, even if you get out of the mess, right? You get a settlement or you fight it in court and you win. At the end of the day, you still got to make your site compliant.
Oh yeah. Yep. And you should.
And you should, right? You would argue it's the right thing to do for the community as well as for the law, right?
Oh, absolutely. I just was not aware of it. I had no idea.
Right.
And people aren't aware of it. And that's, I don't know whose fault that is, but it's certainly easy to ignore. And when you call your web developer or your web designer, they don't know what you're talking about. It's a problem. It's a very complicated problem.
Yeah, I think you make a valid point there, which is when you call your provider, they don't know what you're talking about, because there really is only a few specialized companies like myself and others that have put the money and the energy into getting a program where you can get a website that's compliant. And I think, I don't know if you can weigh in on this, but you find sometimes in the dental space, people have these relationships with their website that it's almost like a marriage. They have a hard time breaking up with it. And I think, they like their site and all this other stuff. And I get the headache of that. And, I think it's time for everyone to kind of, who's listening to this, it's time to break up that relationship. And it's time to put your business and yourself first, right? Because we all know the people who have a relationship with a web guy or a patient, or like you hired a younger kid to do it who you probably know through a social circle, and it seems awkward. But at the end of the day, it's your livelihood, your business, your practice on the line, and we're doing this audio so people can learn from your experience, where no relationship in the world is worth getting your butt in trouble in federal court. I'm sorry, it's not. And I think, that's where you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and get yourself a new ADA compliant site. That way, if anyone ever comes knocking on your door, you're completely prepared. And I think for someone like yourself, you're doing a good job letting people know about it, but you didn't know about it because no one really talks about it, right? And the web firms are sort of sweeping it under the rug. Yeah, they don't. And what do you think about this? I've read on some of the forums and some internal posts that a lot of these doctors who are receiving these letters from attorneys are ripping them up and calling them scams and just not addressing them in any way. What's your feeling on that? I mean, I think that's a dangerous move, but I'm curious what you think.
I've heard about that, but when you're sitting there holding what looks to be, and turns out it is a legitimate lawsuit, and it's got federal written all over it, and your name written all over it, and the things that you've done wrong, and you look at that and you go, I don't want to be any part of this, and then you start thinking also, well, having your website being non-compatible is not good in the first place. It's like, well, yeah, I want to fix this, but I don't know if I would throw that out. I heard a chiropractor friend of mine went to a state meeting. The person responsible for the chiropractic, of course, that's probably not a good example, but for enforcement within the chiropractic society, told their group of people to just throw it out and ignore it. It's not real.
Oh.
So, I don't know.
Well, that tells me that advice is going around. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's commonplace for a lot of dentists to get demand letters from attorneys, whether it's for a breach of contract situation or for compliancy issues. And I'm sure it happens here and there. And I'll be honest with you, my experience is most doctors they just throw it in the trash. And, on the civil level, maybe when you're dealing with contract issues or a lease agreement issue or something like that, maybe you could do that. I still don't suggest it, but in this particular instance, you're dealing with the Department of Justice, federal court, and a place where the stakes are high and it's serious, right? And I would only imagine, maybe you could weigh in on this, what if that attorney, who in your particular instance was representing veterans, right? What if they forwarded that to the dental board and informing them that you're in? You there? You there?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that at all, because you never know when that's going to just come back, and haunt you. I wouldn't want that hanging over my head. And this, the law is there. It's been there for years, and they had Title I and they had Title II, which did apply only to government offices and things like that. But Title III applies to any commercial business that does business with the public. Anybody, daycare centers, hotels, anybody. So you're included, dental offices.
Yeah, Target was sued for the same infraction that you received the letter for, and they had to settle for an undisclosed amount, right? Because they're a brick and mortar retail business, and they have to be accessible, just like your office has to be accessible. If you're seeing customers at your place of business, you have to have access to your building. You have to have access to your website, which is considered an extension of your building, because we're in 2017, right? Everything's on a computer. So if someone can't navigate your site because they have a disability of any kind, you are in violation. So, and the reason I asked you that is just because I want everyone to hear it firsthand from someone who's gone through it, who's still going through it months and months later, trying to get this off of his plate. It's costing him thousands of dollars, when in reality, if you would have known about it 6 months ago, you would have probably bought yourself a brand new ADA compliant site, and you wouldn't even be in this predicament. Would you agree?
Oh, exactly. I didn't know, and most people don't know.
Right. And it's not your fault either, right? But it's sort of like understanding the HIPAA regulations, which, by the way, this has nothing to do with HIPAA. This is completely separate. I've also heard that rumor. And it's sort of like complying with the HIPAA regulations, right? You don't know every single thing about that law, and you're not expected to know every single thing about the ADA law either. So, but that's sort of why we're doing this public relations campaign, and we're lucky enough to interview you and have you on to talk about this, is because we're making it our duty over here at Local Search for Dentists to inform as many dental practices in this country about, one, what's going on, and then two, how to become compliant, and then three, what to do if you do receive a letter after you become compliant. Anyone listening to this, you have to become compliant. It doesn't matter what relationship you have with your website, whether you're in love with the idea of the design of it or you have a relationship with the web firm who built it. The fact of the matter is you need to hire someone, whether it's ourselves or someone else, who can actually get you compliant. So that way, you can go to bed at night knowing that you're serving every disabled patient in your community, and you're not going to get a letter and a lawsuit sent to your office in a big old scary package like you did, right? So, that's pretty much everything I have. We'll provide more information, on how to get yourself an ADA compliant site below this audio recording. If there's any questions, certainly anyone can ask us that. Give us a call. We'll help out as best we can. But Dr. X, do you have anything else you want to tell your peers and colleagues before we end our time here?
No, not really. Just I would just definitely get your site compatible, and like
Right. Yep. I think what you're saying is get your site compliant ASAP. So I appreciate your time today, and I'm just going to go ahead and thank everyone for joining us, and if you need any help, let us know.